This video is sponsored by Nvidia and PC Specialist. PC Specialist is one of Europe's leading system integrators, specializing in high-performance, custom-built gaming PCs and laptops for enthusiasts, gamers and creators. Check out the link in this video's description to configure your own high frame rate machine, which they'll build, test and deliver to your door. Watch this video at 720p setting or above, otherwise the human eye won't be able to see more than 30 FPS. Most people know the importance of having a fast PC with a good processor and graphics card. But even if you have all that, a lot of its potential is wasted if you have a substandard monitor. These days, there are many ways in which a new monitor can make your experience on the computer better. You can have a bigger screen or a higher resolution. But one of the most tangible differences, I feel, is to have a higher refresh rate. That being one that refreshes more than the usual 60 times a second. High refresh rates aren't the mysterious technology that they used to be. These days, it's not just the pros and hardcore enthusiasts who use and benefit from high refresh rate monitors. It's gradually creeping into the mainstream. It's being added to phones, laptops, and even some titles on the next generation of consoles might be designed to run beyond 60 FPS. On the PC front, 144Hz has been the gaming standard for a while, and it's getting to the point where using a standard 60Hz monitor will put you at a significant disadvantage against other players in competitive games like CSGO. And even if you're not planning to play competitively, a high refresh rate monitor makes even general gaming and desktop use feel more responsive. A standard monitor displays 60 frames a second. High refresh rate monitors can display significantly more than that. 144Hz is the most popular, but now 240 and even 360Hz monitors are beginning to come out. Provided your PC is powerful enough, the more often your monitor refreshes, the smoother motion will appear, and the more responsive your controls will be, and hence, the better you'll play. In this video's description is a link to Nvidia's site where, among other things, they conducted a study showing this correlation between frame rates and KD ratio. This isn't specifically monitor refresh rates, but frame rates are a close cousin to it. You effectively need both to be high to make the most of it. And guess what? It seems like the more frames a second people have, the better they play. For example, somebody gaming at 180 frames per second gets almost double the KD ratio as somebody playing at 60. I first assumed that maybe people with higher frames per second would play the game more and thus were more likely to be better at the game, which is why this graph is so intriguing, because it shows that if two people are playing the same amount per week, the one with the faster graphics card is likely to be better. The trend shown here suggests that the best players are the ones who play the game the most and who also have the faster hardware. Correlation does not equal causation. But regardless, the correlation is intriguing, and I think there's a strong case to be made for higher FPS allowing you to play better, or at least hindering you less than a lower frame rate would. If you're a bad player, a high refresh rate monitor is not going to make you a good one. It's merely one less thing that can stop you from playing well. It'll improve your reflexes in games, it'll make your flick shots more precise and so on. And from this graph, it seems like the difference it makes can be quite substantial, potentially almost doubling your score, though the benefit begins to level off at around 144 FPS, which is where the refresh rates of gaming monitors begins. Of course, it's one thing to hear that high refresh rate monitors are better, but it can be difficult to justify the investment without knowing roughly what to expect from it. But the problem is, you can't know what high refresh rates feel like until you've tried them, which makes my job difficult. How can I possibly explain what it's like when YouTube is limited to 60 FPS? I might not do a perfect job of it in this video, but I think I can do better than stuff like this, which is the sort of stuff I often see shown to demonstrate how high refresh rates are apparently better. I think the easiest way to imagine a high refresh rate would instead be for you to suffer a low one. In CSGO you can use the console command FPS max 30. Just don't do this in a competitive game, please. You can see 30 FPS gameplay here, which you'll probably notice is looking quite a bit choppier than normal. Cinematic even. But the effect is amplified when you're controlling it for yourself. Compared with 60 FPS, 30 makes your actions feel delayed and approximate. It gets to the point where even my mind begins to run at 30 FPS, stuttering and lagging. Returning to 60 again, it's immediately noticeable how much more responsive it feels. What a relief it is. And, compared with 60, high refresh rate monitors are like another step up again. Just be sure to enable it here once you get one. Unfortunately, YouTube being limited to 60 FPS, I can either show comparisons at 1/3 of normal speed, or I can simulate full speed by showing 1 picture per frame on the 60Hz side of the screen and 3 pictures per frame on the 180Hz side, which has the unfortunate side effect of making 180Hz have more ghosting than the 60Hz one does, when in practice it doesn't. The opposite even. You obviously don't see all 3 pictures at the same time on a 180Hz display, since it has enough individual frames to show one at a time, but you'll just have to get a 180Hz monitor to see that for yourself. There are gameplay benefits to using these monitors. Nvidia conducted a study and concluded that low latency determined how fast your reflexes were, but that higher frame rates helped your tracking, that is, to keep your crosshair over a moving target. Ideally, you'll want both, which you'll get with a good quality high refresh rate monitor. So how do high frame rates help with your mouse tracking? I certainly can't consciously appreciate every individual frame that's displayed on a monitor every second. I think that while you aren't aware of making small adjustments to your aim mid-mouse movement, the extra frames provide your subconscious with more information, which helps guide your aim whether you're aware of it or not. Kind of the opposite to how gaming at 30 frames a second would hinder those same actions. So that's why I think high frame rates help your tracking in games. The other factor, latency, is the delay before the action is displayed on your monitor. If latency is low, then the time it takes for you to press the fire button after seeing an enemy is lower as well, as is the time taken before you initiate a flick shot towards a target at the edge of your screen. A high refresh rate monitor itself will help lower the latency because more images are displayed every second, meaning the time between them is shortened. Hence, lower latency before present information is displayed, which means you'll see enemies around corners sooner than you would on a lower refresh rate monitor. It's worth discussing the limitations of high refresh rate monitors too. To fully appreciate them, your PC needs to be able to run the games at those frame rates. The ideal situation is, if you have a 240Hz monitor, that your PC is also fast enough to produce 240 frames a second, all perfectly spaced out. But more FPS is always better. If your PC is running at much higher frame rates than your monitor can display, then there's wasted potential, and buying a higher refresh rate monitor would make it look smoother. And conversely, if your PC is running at lower frame rates than your monitor can show, you won't be getting the full benefit of your monitor's refresh rate. But if you get one with a variable refresh rate technology such as FreeSync or G-Sync, then this will synchronize your monitor to your PC, making it feel really smooth, even at lower frame rates. In casual games, you might favour higher graphic settings or resolutions over having ultra-high frame rates, which is where a variable refresh rate would come in handy to keep latency as low as possible. For competitive games though, you'd probably prioritise getting the highest frame rates you can, as it would be a shame to have a 240Hz monitor if your PC is only running these kinds of games at 60 FPS. If you're in that situation, identify whether it's a processor or graphics card bottleneck in your PC and upgrade accordingly. If you check out the link in the description, you'll see this graph, which is useful in showing how each card in Nvidia's current graphics card lineup can run popular competitive games. It's useful to know that if you're playing Overwatch, a 1650 Super would manage 144 FPS average, ideal if you opt for a 144Hz monitor. But if you have a 240Hz monitor, then you'll need a faster GeForce 2060 Super to reach that kind of frame rate. Likewise, a 2060 Super is also needed simply to break the 144Hz average in PUBG, so the hardware you need depends on the game you're playing. I don't see CSGO here, but I suspect it would be even easier to run than Overwatch, so even a 1650 Super would sit comfortably above 144Hz at most times. And last, we've got to consider the diminishing returns. Jumping from 30 to 60Hz drops the time between frames from 33 milliseconds down to 17. To achieve another 17 millisecond drop, you'd need infinite frames a second, so it's obvious that there's a hard limit to how much more responsive the screen can get. But the important question is, when does it stop making a noticeable difference? And have we reached it yet? According to this graph from earlier, KD ratio improvements are seen going all the way up to 180 FPS. So while the improvements are seen levelling off after around 140, beyond that does still make a difference. It is an interesting thing to consider when for so many years 60 FPS has been the popular target frame rate for gaming. To think beyond that there's still plenty of room for improvement, which I guess competitive games have highlighted sooner than other genres have. If you want to know why I got a high refresh rate screen, it's because I was quite fond of the old CRT monitors, which themselves came with incredibly high refresh rates. There was a period where all you could buy were standard 60Hz flat screens, which I used for several years. But in 2012, just before CSGO came out, I found a 120Hz screen and justified buying it because I was also fascinated by the concept of using it for 3D, which worked back then by syncing up special shutter glasses with a high refresh rate monitor, and then by altering the view displayed on it very quickly between the left and right eyepieces. These days, that kind of 3D technology has been superseded by VR, but I use the monitor's high refresh rate in all kinds of applications and games, and I suspect it gave me a dirty, cruel advantage over other people in CSGO during the game's earliest days when few people had that kind of monitor. Over the years it has become more common, and these days I think very few pro players would be happy to play competitively on a 60Hz monitor ever again. In conclusion, high refresh rate monitors are an essential upgrade for anybody interested in playing games competitively, but the benefits extend beyond that, and I find it makes my time on the desktop feel more responsive and enjoyable as well. Videos are one thing where I don't think more than 60 FPS makes much of a difference, but anything where you're controlling it can be felt well beyond that number. How many you need for the perfect experience is anyone's guess, but we're on our way to finding out.